The content in this video is for general educational use. It does not represent political opinions or judgments about any country, culture, or government. Information is based on publicly available sources and may be summarized or simplified. Viewers should verify details through multiple sources.
You know, some events, we can see them coming, but there are others that exist just over the horizon. They're so consequential, they could change everything, and yet they feel so unlikely that we almost never talk about them. We're going to explore one of those thought experiments, the sudden collapse of North Korea. At its core, the North Korean state is built on one single idea, that absolute control creates perfect, unshakable stability. It's a system designed to be impenetrable, to last for eternity. But the truth is, the more you centralize control, the more fragile the entire structure becomes. And this forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question, the kind that planners and strategists consider in quiet rooms. What happens when the system's single point of failure, the supreme leader, is suddenly gone? What follows in that silence? To really understand what a collapse would look like, we first have to understand the architecture of that control, because the very thing that holds the nation together is also its greatest vulnerability. See, North Korea isn't a typical autocracy. It's a system of what experts call one-man rule. All power, political, military, even social, it all flows from one single person. The state's very identity is fused to the Kim family. This isn't just a political system, it's a dynasty. And here, you can see the machinery of that control. It's not just one tool, it's an entire web. There's an informant system that turns neighbors into spies. The threat of punishing 3 generations of your family for one person's mistake, that ensures obedience. For the elites, loyalty is bought with access and rewards. And for everyone else, a total wall of propaganda seals them off from the rest of the world. But this entire, intricate design, it has one fatal flaw. When you concentrate all authority, all legitimacy in one person, the entire state becomes totally dependent on their survival. The system is strong, for sure, but it's also incredibly brittle. If that one person disappears, the whole structure is at risk of shattering. And this diagram, this illustrates the most dangerous part of that single point of failure. This shows what analysts believe the nuclear command structure looks like. The orders flow from one man and one man only. He is the sole authority. It's designed that way to ensure absolute loyalty. But it also means that if he vanishes, the entire command system for the world's most dangerous weapons just disappears with him. So let's see how a political crisis at the very top can spiral into a nationwide catastrophe. Because when the center cannot hold, things fall apart with terrifying speed. Before we talk about systems, let's just talk about people. It's estimated that over 100,000 people are held in a vast network of political prison camps. When the regime that put them there dissolves, what happens to them? And what happens to their guards? This is just one of the first of many human crises that would unfold. In a state where the government literally controls everything, its collapse means the collapse of all the essential services. The systems that provide food, medicine, security, they don't just get weaker, they start to evaporate. Just take food, for example. The public distribution system is the lifeline for millions of North Koreans. It's a simple, top-down chain. The central government allocates the food, it's sent out to the provinces, and then it's handed out to the people. It's not efficient, but it works right up until that first link in the chain just snaps. So what happens next? Well, without a supreme leader, factions in the military and the party would almost certainly start fighting each other for control. The food distribution system would shatter, leading to hoarding and then mass starvation. The security services would turn on each other, or they'd just dissolve. The country wouldn't just collapse, it would tear itself apart in what could easily become a civil war. And this internal chaos creates a danger that extends far, far beyond the borders of North Korea. It becomes a problem for the entire world. This quote from a former intelligence official, it really just gets to the heart of it all. A stable North Korea is a threat, absolutely. But an unstable, collapsing North Korea, that's a nightmare scenario on a completely different level. Let's break down the core dilemma here. To stop a coup or someone launching a nuke without permission, North Korea likely uses what's called an assertive control model, where the leader is the only one who can give the order. But to make sure the weapons could still be used even if he were attacked, some kind of delegation would be necessary. This creates an impossible choice between total control and being ready to fight. The regime's paranoia has led it to hide its weapons even from its own top commanders. The locations are scattered, the command channels are kept separate. No one person below the supreme leader has the whole picture. So when he's gone, that secrecy doesn't provide security, it guarantees chaos. Which leads to the ultimate question. In the chaos of a total collapse, who gets their hands on the raw nuclear material? The finished warheads? The missiles themselves? A rogue general? A scientist selling to the highest bidder? This is the loose nuke scenario that keeps strategists up at night. As the country implodes and its nuclear arsenal becomes unsecured, the outside world simply cannot stand by. The neighboring countries would inevitably be drawn into the crisis. And here's where we find another monumental risk. The key outside powers would have to intervene, but they'd be doing it with completely different goals. China's #1 priority would be to preserve some kind of North Korean buffer state and stop a wave of refugees from flooding across its border. The US and South Korea, though, they would be focused on one thing above all else: securing every last weapon of mass destruction. This is the geopolitical flashpoint. You could have Chinese forces moving south to prop up what's left of the state, while US and South Korean special forces are moving north to hunt for those WMDs. What happens when they run into each other? An internal collapse could very easily spark a conflict between major world powers. And even if a direct conflict is avoided, even if the weapons are somehow secured, the story doesn't end there. The next chapter would be a challenge that could last for generations. The economic cost alone is just staggering. Some estimates put the price tag of Korean unification in the trillions of dollars. And we're not just talking about humanitarian aid, we're talking about rebuilding an entire nation from the ground up. And the costs go so much deeper than money. It would mean confronting decades of horrific human rights abuses. It would mean rebuilding the entire country's infrastructure. It would mean trying to merge two populations that have lived in completely different worlds for over 70 years. It would mean building a system of laws and justice from scratch. This isn't the work of a few years, it's the work of a century. And so we end right back where we began, with a paradox. No one wants this scenario to happen. The risks are almost too great to even comprehend. And yet, because the entire system is built on such a fragile foundation, the possibility can never be dismissed. It is the crisis that must be prevented at all costs, but which can never, ever be ignored.